Okay, so this is effectively part two. Last month we talked about the beginnings of the Inventing Remida Portland uh Remida inspired project. Kind of thinking about our beginnings in this place, in this context in Fresno with Remedio. Um and for part two, I was wanting to speak about this idea of the epistemology of display. And this came up in my dissertation research where I interviewed and did dyadic and focus group interviews with two Remida inspired directors, two Remida inspired classroom teachers, and two Reggio Remida inspired studio teachers. And basically, I kind of paired them up and had them share stories about how they engage children in identity studies using these reuse materials. So one of them, the director from a corporate infant toddler preschool that was Reggio inspired, they have a Remida inspired center right when you walk into their lobby called Create in Oregon. She came up with this idea of this epistemology of display. So really thinking about our thinking pedagogically when it comes to how we exhibit and display materials. But before we get into it, I do want to make a land acknowledgement. So, inspired by the children in Australia who came up with this beautiful land acknowledgement, which I've uh, adapted to Fresno. We raise our hands to the sky that covers the Mono and Yokuts lands. We place our hands on the ground in the care of the Mono and Yokuts land. We place our hands on our hearts in the love of the Mono and Yokuts lands. All right, so just some quick updates. We do have an Instagram thanks to our fellow, our Remedio fellow, Aaliyah Porter. She got us up and running, and the handle is Remedio, what do you call that? Underdash 24. So please, I forget how you do it on Instagram. Friend us and share out. And I'll be, making visible the growth and development formation of the Remedio on that Instagram. The other update is that Vanessa, who is a preschool teacher with Fresno Unified, is in the process of connecting Aaliyah with the containers that she can source from Fresno Unified. They're reuse containers for food that would otherwise be thrown away. And so we're hoping to be able to use them to store materials in Remedio, which is located in the Huggins Center at Kremen. I was kind of inspired by Rachel's research, who's here tonight, and I've come across she quoted this in her master's research on Remida inspired environments and how transformative they are. And she brought up a really classic quote that's on the Remida Reggio website, and I just wanted to share it because it's so good, and that's why it does come up again and again. But I'd almost forgotten about it. Remida promotes the idea that waste materials can be resources. The center collects, exhibits, and offers alternative and reclaimed materials obtained from unsold stock and rejects or discarded materials from industrial and handicraft production, with the aim to reinvent their use and meaning. Remida is a cultural project that represents a new, optimistic, and proactive way of approaching environmentalism and building change through giving value to rejected materials, imperfect products, and otherwise worthless objects, to foster new opportunities for communication and creativity in a perspective of respect for objects, the environment, and human beings. It's so beautifully put. So Remida, Italy does have a website, worth checking out if you haven't. And they update it quite a bit. Okay, so I put some words on some of these slides from my dissertation around this idea of thinking about our thinking when it comes to how we make these reuse materials available in a way that really honors them. So this idea of organization as a value, that children appreciate organization and don't like chaotic displays of material. So this was where the reuse center was at my lab school at Portland State. It was pretty small. We took the materials out of there and began transporting them upstairs to the new space, which was 4 times bigger. But it had been very small. I think it had a couple of locations in the school, but mostly like this, very, very small. So again, this value of organization and aesthetics. So combining organization and beauty. And this was the very beginnings, the humble beginnings of the Inventing Remida Portland project, which is now thriving, and also on Instagram. But this was us just kind of moving materials, which were a mix of beautiful stuff, another way of saying reuse materials sourced from families at a school, children and families. A local artist who was a salvage artist used a lot of wood. So at this point, we'd had some materials from the university, the business school had donated some, but we had not asked for materials from local businesses yet. So again, this idea of giving value to materials through aesthetic organization and display that honors their agency. So in the beginning, it was pretty overwhelming. There was a lot of material to organize and sort through and think about how we wanted to display it. Along with the epistemology of display, my research participants described cleanliness when they went to Italy, being really struck by the cleanliness, the volume, because Remida Italy gets their materials from large manufacturers. They'll get 300 of one material that would have otherwise been thrown away. So you can really appreciate how much material is being discarded otherwise. Cleanliness, volume, aesthetics, and organization. And this was all the Inventing Remida Portland Advisory Committee sorting and organizing and dialoguing about how we wanted to make this center function. This was our original logo. There's a new one now, but it was taken from the Remida Day, and I'll do another presentation down the road on this idea of Remida Day when we take the materials outside into the community and display them for community folks to engage with.
Dr.
Nisha,
Dominguez, sorry to interrupt.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Are you sharing slides? I don't see any slides.
Are you serious? Oh, can you see them now?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Is that what you were gonna say, Andrew?
Yes.
Oh
Exactly.
my God.
Is that okay if you go back to the beginning to just kind of quickly scroll down to just give us?
Yeah. So this was the first reuse center that got transported upstairs that was very small. This was in the preschool wing. This was when we moved the materials upstairs. We had a bunch of little rooms that became studios, Remida inspired studios. So this was a mix of the beautiful stuff and the artist's materials and donations from the university. So we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rooms to work with. Little rooms. This was my co-coordinator, David, another grad student. We were both grad students at the time. And this was our first logo. With images from the one of the first Remida days when we took them. I wasn't there at that point. They took the materials out into the community, into the park blocks. Okay, so this is where you told me that I wasn't sharing. Sorry about that. So this was one of the first materials that we actually purchased from a reuse center. It was one of the, oh no, actually we might have gotten this from a local business. We did for free. It's what the electricians put the wire around, and we used it as a table. Right around the time that we were in charge of working with the advisory committee to figure out how we wanted to co-construct this Remida inspired center, I started doing this master recycler program. And so I started going around with this master recycler group on these field trips and visiting different programs in the community that were focused on this one was, I believe this was compost. And thinking and noticing how they were organizing themselves with the same environmental mission as we have. And how they were organizing for their volunteers. So this was a computer recycling business that was really popular. So they got kind of creative up on the wall. You'd see little creations. This was the composting facility, and this was actually where you could go and look at the different types of compost that you could purchase, I guess. How they displayed it. This was the composting as well. I think they surround the compost piles with this material. All the while, we're organizing, we're sorting, we're meeting together, we're discussing which materials should be kept, which don't really are just garbage. And we start to, this was the light atelier. I go to a recycling center, I start to see, you know, how the metals are organized, the paper, the glass, just thinking a lot about aesthetics and organization, cleanliness, giving value to the materials. This was discarded cardboard being prepared to be pulped and recycled. We went and visited a rebuilding center where you can go and get reuse housing construction materials to build with. So just really some really big spaces that are also sharing this ethic of reuse for the environment. But also bringing community together and being creative. This is all kind of swishing around in my mind, and I start to set up these rolling carts to take into the classroom as the Inventing Remida coordinator to invite the children to start to engage with these materials. So thinking about organization, aesthetics, displaying them in a beautiful way, in a way that's accessible for the children, that they can get their hands in and touch, and then represent themselves and engage in their identity studies. I ended up going to a place where they fix appliances so that you don't throw them away, and fix them and reuse them. Kind of noticing how they were organizing themselves, displaying their materials. And then I found I started to solicit materials from the appliance repair shop. They started to give us, they donated, vegetable bins because we started to design, a cabinet to put discards in that was accessible children's height and visual so they could see into it. And then I found this other business that sold plastics, and they offered their discarded defective plastics to Inventing Remida Portland, a local family-owned business, Paxel. And they actually manufactured the plastic there. So it was a legit Remida inspired manufacturer. And these are the beautiful materials that they were producing that if they were discarded, they donated to us. In the epistemology of display that came up as a theory about how we think about our thinking when it comes to displaying reuse materials with a lot of honor and respect. The Remida inspired lab director talked about the challenges in stewarding the space through collecting, organizing, and displaying the reclaimed materials. So she said that because it was right when you walk in the school, there's a lot of pressure to have it look organized, but that there were certain times of the year when it was particularly, wild. And so you could see it in the Create Center right when you walk in because it would be a little bit more disorganized. But as a school, they didn't have grad students organizing and displaying. The teachers and admin were responsible. So this is a display with beads and light that we ended up finding out was not developmentally optimal for the toddlers. The hard way, they got in there and it was a disaster within 5 minutes. So we were learning as we went, like which rooms were more geared towards adults to come in and think with and touch and talk and explore, and which were becoming more for children to actually visit. And that was a learning curve. So then I'm trying to think of how I would reach out. This was all from a lot of my local community where I knew these businesses. So this was a feminist, female-owned factory where they made textiles, and they donated textiles to us. So we went and took a tour. And here's an example of integrating that textile material into the classroom with some of the beautiful stuff material. So now it's a mix of textile, which is Remida inspired because it's from a local business manufacturer, and beautiful stuff, which was sourced from families, mixing those materials together and the children engaging with them. And this play would go on for way longer than it seemed like it would with materials that weren't as raw or unfinished. We had wood from a salvage shop. I sourced metal from our university bike shop. And then I started making signs and would tell the businesses that were donating to us, we'll make your business visible in the center for visitors. And so it was a little bit of reciprocity. This was the bin that I would actually drag from the bike shop to the Remida Center with the metals inside of it. Here's an example of a provocation where we invited children to make bicycles with the reuse bicycle parts. This is some of that pack cell discarded plastic on display. An example of making visible the donation by the small business, some of that reciprocity. This is the appliance repair shop that donated for our cabinet. Another business that donated to us was an upholstery shop. They gave us discards of their reupholstery. And then here's a salvage wood shop that not only donated wood, but donated time from one of their employees to build the cabinet. This is a little tiny Remida that I created at an in-home Reggio inspired school I was working at the time as a studio teacher. So this was probably my first personal little Remida inspired. Here's the actually a parent who also happened to work at the salvage works who told us about the place as a possible donation. And here's the beginnings of the cabinet that he was making for us out of these refrigerator boxes that I was telling you about that you can see into. And that was when it was done. We ended up putting caps that had been collected by families, I think for over a year into it. And then teaching about the birds that are eating the plastics in a developmentally optimal and creative way, exploring that with the children through these different colored caps. This is an image from when I went to Remida in Italy. It was a small town, not the main Remida, but a little one, how they were displaying their materials so beautifully. And if you notice, they don't put everything in containers. So that's something for us to think with, is how might we display materials without necessarily putting it in a container? It was small, so I noticed that they had a shipping container with, Remida on it to store their materials, but they were also kind of beautifully displayed inside of there too. This is an example of what was inside. And an example of organizing by color, which is kind of a fun way to do it sometimes, or by texture, or however, really. So for example, with this gray textile on top, they're just kind of twisting it and knotting it rather than putting it in a container. But all at children's height, children can get in there and touch it. Adults can get in there and touch it, see it. It's organized, it's beautiful. I think it really speaks to this idea of an epistemology of display. So 7:30. I did have a little material to read more about the epistemology of display, but I think you probably get the gist of it. I was wondering for tonight if we could think about any ideas for small businesses that might be a source of materials for Remedio, or because these are two that I'm gonna go visit. The vintage shop said she'll give us textiles, discarded textiles, because she makes clothes there out of reuse materials. And then here's a furniture shop that I was hoping to go visit and see if they will donate wood bits. But I was also wondering if you have any thoughts on alternative ideas, because for instance, these are the caps that I was telling you about that we collected for over a year. So it realistically would be a mixture of materials sourced from families' homes and small businesses. The thing with the small businesses is that then you have to have a way to go around and pick it up. So is there anything you saw, heard, wondered about, wanted to comment on, or any thoughts on our little space in Huggins Center and how to work with the constraint just of the space itself? The materials will actually have to be small.
I
How did
think,
we work in Huggins Center? Oh, were you gonna say something, Fan?
yeah, I think from parents, like I used to collect all these caps, all sorts of caps and a lot. And you know that toilet roll, that toilet paper roll? And
That's a
also
popular one.
and then the kitchen roll, like you know, the one in the middle. A lot of stuff like and the family can collect and it can invite the children from Huggins or some, you know, ask them their parents to collect. Like put some of the big boxes in front of the center, like the hallway when we walk in, then they can just drop it. And children love doing that. I think that's kind of one a not alternative way.
So then they have a feeling of contributing.
Yeah, and it's like they are, it's also, it's a very good education for children because they are like more aware of the environment and reuse the, I think they will call that trash, but you know, you kind of reuse the things that they're gonna throw away and they become more aware of the environmentally friendly concept. That's number one. Number two, later when you use that for the center to create these kind of things, it kind of can open their eyes, like, oh, like you show a lot of pictures, especially that button, like that, I think it's all sorts of buttons, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, on the cloth. Not just the table. So when you put that cloth and different materials, you just make me feel like, wow, you know. And I bet children have that same feeling. They may not, you know, tell you, but you know, it's like a lot of times when they experience things like that, it's very eye-opening to them and also very creative, right? For them. And children always likes to explore things like that, like everything put together, even like a box of little tiny things, the loose parts, and just mixed together, if not sorted. And they love just kind of sort out or things like that. And that's math learning, right? So I'm just like so amazed by the photos you showed and involve children to collect and contribute. It's such a good learning opportunity for them.
Yeah, I mean, it makes me wonder, like, because there is such a impact when there's volume, it would be interesting to have like a whole school like Huggins or Elizabeth didn't come tonight, but the Clovis Community Lab School, to have the whole school donate like one type of material even. Like imagine if everybody, you know those little squeezy pouches, the lids?
Yeah.
Imagine if the whole school brought theirs in. I mean,
Yeah.
there would be, you know, um, or I don't know, some material. I wish it'd be nice to get a material that could go in the infant toddler room that they couldn't swallow. Something that everybody throws away, but that's big enough that the kids wouldn't swallow. Um, so even like to focus on one material just to see the volume of it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, Heaven, do you have any discarded reuse materials in your classroom?
Actually, yes, we have always naturally just started recycling, because that is a philosophy of the Hugging Center. But we've been doing it more so because our project for our classroom is masks. So we're using a lot more loose parts and natural materials with that. So we've been naturally collecting more things to use for our project. And actually, I was thinking, well, this is going on that naturally every classroom already collects loose parts for whatever project they may be focusing on. I know that another classroom, they were making cars out of loose parts. So they had their families do things. So each class each class individually collects, but I was thinking that if we do a community focus, if we do a program-wide focus, it would definitely influence each of us individually, well, each of us as a collective to collect more, especially since the kids are going to see that the center, the location is right there. Especially my classroom, it's right down the hallway. They can see into it. So to essentially give them that collective, all of this that we're collecting, it's going in there. And it's kind of that they're helping create it, they're helping build it. And so now when it does open and when it does come into place, they can naturally see that growth and progress and saying, oh, I'm collecting this and it's going to go in there. And one day I'm going to be able to see it in there. And I know my kids would love to engage with that because just with us simply collecting more cardboard and more the paper rolls and bottle tops or any little loose parts that we are naturally just doing, they're the ones that are like, oh, teacher, you missed this one. Take it off before you throw the marker away. Like, oh, teacher, like they'll tell me and call me out on it to make sure that I'm grabbing everything I can. So I was just thinking right now that I know for me, in the sense, I have a very good communication with most, if not all, the teachers in the Hugging Center that I can simply ask them to start a collective or at least start the conversation with their students, and they will. Because I definitely think them understanding that this is contributing to something that's going to be right down the hall from us and our students are going to be able to see it happen, that they will definitely start a stronger initiative with it.
I really like the idea too, that Fayen brought up of if there were some sort of a collection box of putting like the Remedio, figuring out what the Remedio logo is going to be, and making that visible.
Yeah.
Uh,
You know, even you can put some, we can put some things like that. You know, the Kremen building, the entrance,
yeah.
that one.
Oh, you mean like the main entrance?
Yes. And encourage, make a little poster and encourage the students. A lot of students, they are going to be teachers.
So I'm kind of excited because Rachel's coming to my ethnic studies Lee 103 class on Thursday because it's the first time I've actually, so there's no ecological literacy in any of the curriculums that I've been given to teach. So I've been trying to get this beautiful stuff, creative reuse curriculum into all of my classes, but it's slow going. And so this is the first time that I have an entire class who I've scaffolded, I've front loaded, I've made it visual, you know, like I've contextualized it. They get what we're doing. And they're bringing in their materials on Thursday and they're going to do reuse portraits of each other. So Rachel's gonna document it with me, but we're gonna bring them, they know they're donating the materials to the Remedio Center. So how beautiful to have a collection of beautiful stuff, reuse materials from found objects or homes, maybe with a little bit of a constraint, so it's not just all toilet paper rolls, you know what I mean? Like shiny. Imagine shiny. Ooh, shiny. Or tiny and shiny.
Yeah.
But imagine Remedio with a combination just to get started while we're getting the local businesses on board with materials from students, from credential students and master's ECE students and the children from the Huggins Center.
Yeah.
I love that. Andrew, wouldn't that be a good story?
I mean, it's certainly something that we can promote. I do want to mention one thing just because I hate to be the policy person,
No, this
but
is great.
when you become an official, when you receive that, blessing from the deans about the permanent program within the Kremen School, you will have access to the official Fresno State logos and be sort of obligated to use those as the primary brand marks for your program. We don't create individual logos for programs.
So until that point, what can we do anything?
You can use the Kremen School of Education and Human Development logo for the
Oh,
moment.
that.
I mean, as long as the deans give blessings for that, that would be the primary. I would encourage you not to go ahead and create an independent logo for a Fresno State branded identity. In in the short term, that would not be my recommendation.
Your
So,
recommendation would be to see if Dean Laporta will let us use something that's in the ballpark of what it's going to ultimately be.
So what I would say is that I believe Laura kind of explained the process, which I don't
Yeah.
know about
I have to get a grant.
about the program lines. But until then, as a faculty member within the Kremen School, you can use our logos for those efforts as long as, and if you need any guidance on appropriate usage, I can help with that.
Okay, super.
Yeah, and I'll send you a note about the social media accounts that I know you mentioned earlier in the call and their creation, because I have some administrative pieces for that as well. But other than that, I'm excited by all this, and I really look forward to the space usage as well. And if we need to discuss like signage and graphics for that, which I know was also part of this call,
Yeah.
let's figure out sort of what those needs are and what needs to be communicated so that um, we can sort of get the word out. Like if you are accepting materials from individuals, like how can we start getting the word out about those pieces? Or if you want to target local organizations, like how you're mentioning earlier, let's discuss how to strategically do that within the area, just because I want to make sure we don't step on the toes of our development folks who engage with a lot of businesses and business owners for development purposes, and maybe engage them for donations as well, because I'm sure that those Fresno's feels like a small town sometimes,
Okay.
and it's pretty much a lot of the same people for a lot of those
Hitting up
similar
the same
requests.
people.
Yeah,
Okay.
it feels I don't know how it feels to you because I know you're maybe adapting the region, but I feel like Fresno feels like such a small town a
Yeah,
lot of the
it
time.
does. I'm already
Okay.
recognizing people at the grocery store.
Yes, that's not uncommon. And they're always in sweats and they look strange from how you normally see them. But yeah, I'd be happy to work on a story if you just if there's a time I can stop by your office and we can chat more, or if you want me to work with your fellow, whatever is the most appropriate, because we can tell a student story. Yeah.
Yeah, we're just kind of in the borderlands right now until we can get a grant so that it can become a legit center so that we can get a legit logo. We do have to navigate that borderlands. Okay. So,
Yeah, I just didn't want you to duplicate efforts for design, like the design work involved with anything like that. And it seemed like the logo that was presented earlier, though very creative, I know would have to be depreciated once we have the Fresno State logo, the program logo created. So
yeah, so a
just
little bit of background. Inventing Remida Portland was actually like part of a campus grant that was under the radar. So we got to do everything without really consulting anybody.
Okay.
So my point is that I've never dealt with this before, Andrew, which is why this is kind of new to me. But but I do want to make sure that I don't that we don't step on toes and that and that it's done in a good way. So
Yeah.
I'll follow up with you on that, and then I'm curious, Heaven, if we can talk a little bit more about what might be exciting for your colleagues around calling for materials. We don't have a ton of room.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Andrew.
I had a question about the affiliation between the Remedio and Huggins.
Mhm.
So will there be like an association between the programs because Remedio is like attached to early childhood education, um, or is it not? Are they like very distinctive in terms of their functions? I'm curious just because I know Brittany's not on the call, and I don't know who else works with the Huggins Center directly.
Peggy. Yeah, they're not here tonight. From what I understand, they are separate.
Okay. Okay.
It's
Just
housed in Huggins. It's not a part
okay.
of Huggins.
Okay.
But basically, Brittany said, when it's up and running, please let me know so that we can access it.
Okay. I was just curious because we're right now I'm sort of in discussion with development as to make Huggins like one of the domains that we're going to be prioritizing for development purposes in terms of storytelling efforts and day of giving and other things like that. So if the projects are strongly associated, then we would want to make sure that that's incorporated into the storytelling efforts. But yeah, that can be for another time too, because that day of giving is financial donations, not necessarily materials.
Okie doke.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
there is also, has anybody talked to you about crowdfunding at all?
No.
Crowdfunding is a possibility. So I know Laura mentioned specifically grants to you, and I don't know where crowdfunding features into that, but right now the university development folks are pushing crowdfunding as an opportunity for programs, centers, and projects to raise money. I know we've been talking a lot about donations that are physical objects, but
Yeah.
since you did mention, the grant, which is financial support, they do have like this crowdfunding program that's being offered through development. Haven't looked into it too much personally, but I know our development director, Brylan, has mentioned this on a couple occasions that they're looking for programs and projects that are interested in crowdfunding. You might have to have like financial goals potentially. So you might need to reference like perhaps budgets or like financial needs for the program, which might be kind of hard to assess this early. But if that is something that you're interested in, we can kind of discuss with Brylan a little bit more. She's just down the hall from you, I think. So, and from
Oh.
so it might be an opportunity for you to get that official funding source, maybe temporary or permanent funding from some entity for you. And that might help support the program and its efforts. So just want to mention that to you because money never hurts.
No, crowdfunding might be considered an official funding source that would legitimate us as a center, possibly.
I mean, to me, if you're successful in getting money to help fund the program, I would think that would be legitimate. But that's something that I can circle back with Laura first thing in the morning because she's only here half day tomorrow and confirm for you tomorrow via
Oh,
email.
okay, that'd be great. Thanks, Andrew.
Yeah, I'll do
Okay.
that.
I don't want to put the cart before the horse. So okay. Well, thank you for taking the time to show up tonight, everyone. I really appreciate you so much. I know time is precious. And I was just excited to get excited. And I would love for Remida to be possibly a connective tissue between the master's program and Huggins.
I have another thought,
Yeah.
but maybe for next time, but I maybe I can forget later. For the function point of view,
Mhm.
maybe that can integrate into like, this program, multiple subject credential like I'm teaching now. And you see, this, for example, my course, maybe we can have 1 or 2 sessions focusing on this topic to just kind of have students, these future teachers, to get a bit of taste of it, like, and to see, some of these photos that you presented with us, and bring some materials, or maybe just invite them to go downstairs, to just
Yes.
take a look, and they know how. And it's actually a very good project anywhere in the schools, and children can do with the teachers.
Well, Dr. Luna is super supportive and was actually going to help me get a grant. I need to circle back around to her. I love that idea. I love that idea. And I'd be happy to come to your class, because I mean, really what I want is for my credential students and master's students to think with these materials, so to represent themselves, their image of the teacher, represent the child, their image of the child, using these materials, like getting that creativity,
Yeah.
Infused into my classes. So yeah.
Especially for the school system, like TK to 8, things like that. The preschoolers, they are doing much better. These are kind of 2 different systems. Schools just really focus so much on the academic stuff, and this kind of things is really like just so good. I really feel they need that. The creativity is a big point here. And
Yes.
children's gonna love that. Children, they are gonna, they are gonna love that. And if, for example, I'm just imagining, like, for example, a new teacher, for example, TK teacher or kindergarten or whatever, first grader, they can just open a station in a corner, and they can just have all these materials there. And they can have their own classroom mini one, like I haven't mentioned in Huggins Elementary School, they don't do that, as I know.
Right.
It's
No.
gonna be so cool, It's very good a learning opportunity for children too. I'm so excited about that. If this can be in classrooms.
Yes. So I wonder, I mean, you kind of got me thinking about eventually down, how to announce to Kremen faculty that Remedio is available to share with their classes,
Yeah.
and to do like a little field trip. It's right in the building. It's perfect.
Yeah. I
Um,
can, like tonight I had a class, 4 to 7, and I can have like 30 minutes down to that,
mhm.
that little space.
Yeah, the tiny creative
Yeah.
learning center,
Yeah.
to talk about the ecological message embedded in the materials.
Yeah, and it's also the philosophy point of view that you talk about. Hey, how to actually reflect yourself, your identity, your image, things like that. It's also a way of thinking that these teachers, they really focus on academic learning. They
Mhm.
really have to think about things like that.
Mhm,
Yeah, I
mhm.
feel it's very important.
Very open-ended materials.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so many good ideas. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, well, I'll send out a invite for November. Is November doable for folks, a month from now? And maybe I'll share the shiny fish project, where we combined shiny materials with project work around fish restoration, local fish.
That's so fun. Yeah, I'm available November, but maybe not December.
Yeah.
December is like a little chaotic. It's like,
No, I think we should take a break in December. I think you're right.
yeah.
Okay.
Can I make a quick suggestion if you're talking about skipping December or shooting December?
Yeah.
If you are looking for a venue to communicate with the broader faculty within Kremen, potentially about incorporating Remedio, either philosophy or the program itself, into curriculum,
Yeah.
it might be good to maybe see if the faculty assembly officers would let you make a brief presentation during the faculty assembly meeting in November.
Ooh,
I'm not sure if they meet in December or not. I believe they do,
okay,
but I can look and see if I have the date in my calendar and send that to you. But that would be a good way to kind of inform the broader faculty
yeah,
with an update about the program or just present it to them when you're ready. I
yes.
don't rush you, but that might be a way before we go into the spring semester to reach the faculty to potentially see if there is an opportunity to incorporate that in their spring semester curriculum.
Mhm.
Um, so I just don't want you to miss out on that potential opportunity for you.
Fantastic.
Also, to add on to that, what Andrew mentioned, this is great idea. And for those who don't really show up in the assembly, I guess another way is to prepare like a little flyer or things like that. Very, very simple. And ask Laura or somebody who sent out to everybody. Then everybody can receive the written poster and we know what to do or the information, you know. A lot of people, they never go there. So,
That's a good idea too. Okay.
so
Uh,
it's kind of two ways.
oh, this is so good. Okay, this is great, 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 great. Okay, I'll definitely touch base with you, Andrew, around some of those nuts and bolts. But I love where this is going, this rhizomatic thinking. Good, 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 good. All right, folks. Have a good evening. Anything else before we adjourn for the night? Good, good. Okay. All right, take it easy and I'll send out an invite for November.
Good.
Good night.
Night.